Hi there, and welcome to the Homestead Education Podcast. Do you have a homestead, farm, or just dream of a rural life? This is a show to help you and your kids grow your own food and grow as a person. I'm your host, Kody Hanner. I'm a homesteader, homeschool mom of six, and small town enthusiast. I was raised by an old school rancher and blessed by the grace of God to have been exposed to so much of what rural life has to offer. Join me every week to talk about homesteading, homeschooling, and growth with a homestead education. Hi, I have Diane Peterson from Radical Unschooling here today, and I am so excited to learn from her because unschooling is the hottest new topic in homesteading. So, hi Diane.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. I'm just getting set up with my unschooling morning. Everybody's, sleeping and I
I
have my
love it.
slow mornings, and that's probably one of my favorite times of the day as a
You
whole,
know,
as an unschooler, I guess, or yeah.
you know what? I once had somebody on a podcast ask me, what is your morning rhythm? And I'm like, I'm thinking of all these beautiful, like Pinterest homeschool moms who have these baskets with morning activities and blocks and just this beautiful aesthetic thing. And I knew for a fact that my toddler was out in the living room in just his underwear fighting the dog over a toy.
Yeah,
So,
I knew right away that that's not me, and that's not going to be me. I tried it for 3 days after I pulled my kids. I kind of had this idea in my mind, oh, I'm going to be so organized and it's going to be beautiful and they're going to listen to me.
and then life kicked in.
And then life kicked in, and I just decided right there and then that, I'm going to be doing things differently, and that's okay. As long as I get my stuff done,
Mhm.
we're good.
I agree completely. So, I'd love to hear your story of like why you decided to start homeschooling and then how I know you said 3 days, but how that evolved into unschooling.
Okay. So
We weren't originally homeschoolers either. So there's always this like great story that was that catalyst.
right. So it was a huge one for me because in 2019, I got a job in the school system. So I worked with 0 to 5 year olds, and I ran all these family programs. And then I kind of had this idea that I want to be an early childhood educator. And I also had a part-time job as an education assistant, teacher assistant. So, I felt like I had my foot in the door. I had a good gig and I had like 3 different positions in the school. And my kids were just at that age where they were just going into kindergarten, grade one, and I thought, oh, perfect. We're going to do this rhythm forever.
Yeah.
This is going to be perfect. I couldn't wait, to get back to work. Right. I
Hmm.
had been home with my kids because my girls were back to back, 15 months apart.
I had
And I felt
twins,
like,
so I kind
oh,
of feel you.
yeah. And I was like, oh, I've been home for 5 years. I'm done. I don't want to work. I'm going to be a working girl,
I
where,
worked in the corporate world and I loved my job. Like I legitimately loved it. I learned a way that after I came home to make that job be something I can do from home.
yes, yes. And for me, the perk was that I get to be on the job with my kids, and just kind of see them
Hmm.
all the time.
Yeah.
And then COVID hit.
Isn't
And
that
right,
always the story? Like, goodness.
and it's like I just got it figured out. Like I had my life planned out, this is going to be beautiful. And COVID hit, and my
I think
husband said,
COVID
I
had
want to
the
hope.
opposite effect that they were aiming for.
Yes. And my husband said he wants to homeschool and he wants me to drop everything that I'm doing and just come home with the kids. And I said, what do you mean? You're crazy. Like you're asking me to sacrifice, my job, my career, all these
Hmm.
connections and opportunities that I had set up for myself. And I was also doing my one of my practicums in kindergarten, and I was also working as so it was a weird position. Like I was doing 3 different things in a classroom, in a kindergarten classroom. Like I
Mhm.
was doing my practicum. I was also paid to be there. Like that was my paycheck.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was also a parent with my youngest child. And it was just super awkward to navigate that time, where you kind of like, you see things unfold in real life, how they're being masked and distanced,
Oh,
uh, like
I
social
couldn't imagine
distance.
those little babies, like, 5 years old, trying to understand why they have to be masked and can't be near their friends.
Right. So at the time I thought, I also have an edge, because, I'm in the system and I get to like protect my kids because the doors were shut to everybody else. All the parents weren't allowed to even get through the gates,
Oh,
to even be on the playground or the parking lot. Like you just wait in line to pick up your kid. So I did feel a little bit privileged to kind of be in there. But then, week after week, you start to see the dynamic shift, power from the parents to the teachers, and things not being communicated back to the parents about what's happening in the classroom on the daily. So I felt like I was that fly on the wall, but also eyes on the inside until that one day when there was this principal that came in, and she's like, no, like it's fine. And we're just kind of sitting there, and I'm in the classroom, trying to shush everybody. And then she pulls out this big board, and she just starts doing this big propaganda speech about, masking and how it's good. And at the same time, like I know who the parents are, and I know where they stand with some of the things that were pushed.
right.
And I'm just like, oh my God, like I think I'm gonna throw up because my child is also in there. And the children that I thought that were like solid, they've been drilled to stand up for their rights and kind of like not do what they're told in certain situations, if you know what I
Mhm.
mean.
Yeah.
And these kids, they were
I'm
just
like
like,
getting like teary-eyed.
yeah. And these kids that you thought that, they'll never break, they raised up their hands and said, yes, I would like a rainbow mask. I would like to be like all my friends. Yes. And that's when it hit me, like, that's how easy it is. That's all
Yep.
it took.
And what else can they push on the kids besides the mask thing?
Yes.
What else are we seeing the kids
Yeah.
like? Yeah, I
And,
would
and
have
that was
probably
that was
walked out
that
right
moment where
there.
I felt so sick in my stomach because it's not that I was just a parent in that situation, because I would have been like, yeah, no, wait, grab her hand, let's go home.
Hmm.
But it was also the situation where if I do that, I may lose my job and I may be kicked out of my program for going against the powers that be. And at that moment, I decided that, okay, I'm going to ride this thing out, until the end of the semester. And, we're going to talk it through and I'm going to homeschool the kids. So I kind of knew uh, what was coming for me, and I knew that by September, the kids were coming home.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, and it was just an awkward time, where there was a lot of classroom isolations. If there was one case of COVID, then the whole classroom needed to stay home for 10 days. But I had three kids in that school, so I literally had three classrooms back to back, all in isolation. So we
How
were
does
home
that
for
even
like a whole
work?
month, 2 months, and I'm like, well, we might as well stay home
Right.
because we already got into the rhythm of, oh yeah, we're just living our life and we actually like it. We love it, we like each other, and we're getting along. So why not? So my kids came home, and then coming January, uh, I decided that I was going to finish the school year with the positions that I had, kind
Hmm.
of. to keep the paycheck going, to finish strong or whatever
I feel
it
you.
means.
Yeah.
And it was the most awkward time in my life again, because your kids are home, but you're too good to send your kids, but then you're also here. And then I would get like all these questions of like why and what's the problem? I'm like, look around you.
Right.
How do you see the problem? I can't believe you're asking me, what the problem is.
Mhm.
So anyway, here I am, trucking along and never went back.
Yeah.
And it was supposed to be a temporary decision. We thought, oh, well, things will blow over. We'll go back in spring break. And then the school said, no, you can't come back. You have to finish the school year. And I said, okay, well, I guess we won't be coming back. And we haven't been back since.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, when you were planning what your homeschool was going to look like, what were you planning? Like, what were your thoughts, like, before you decided to take this turn into unschooling?
Well, first of all, I started diving into all these homeschool groups on Facebook, right? Because there's a million of them.
Oh, yeah. And
There's like this,
everyone's saying something different.
yeah, there's this curriculum and there's that curriculum, and you need to do it this way, and you need to be involved in this, and you need to do all these extracurricular activities. And it was just too much. I felt like I was
Yeah.
drowning in all that information. And then, interestingly, I ended up finding Tasha Fishman's community on
Uh-huh.
Facebook, and she had kind of just started it. Uh, and she was bringing on this whole concept of unschooling. And I thought, oh, like interesting. It sounds very much like me because I don't want to do
Yeah.
any of that. And I connected with her right away. Uh, yeah, and I kind of had to deprogram myself. I took some time, at least 6 months, from January till August, where I, decided that, it's okay if we drop the books, if we drop the workbooks. Like I said before, I did try it for a couple of days, maybe a week,
Hmm.
and it turned into a little bit of a battle where my youngest one just wasn't ready and she wasn't into it, and she was only 5.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, whatever, just into the trash, we're gonna be fine. So I really had to trust myself that we're gonna be okay.
You
And
know,
6 months later, uh, yeah, they started asking me, hey, can we do this? And what about workbooks? I'm like, oh, well, I'm glad you asked. Yeah.
we started homeschooling going on 8 years now.
Oh, wow.
And when we first started, it was kind of a split thing because my older boys, who are actually my stepsons, but I've been raising them pretty much their whole lives, their mom passed away.
Hmm.
They are just not wired for school at all.
Nope.
Where my biological kids are wired for school. And I'm not even saying that because then, like, my husband and I have children together, like we have the yours, mine, and ours. And all 4 of the ones that are mine are like they're just genetically wired to learn. Like they're just that they want to. They thrive on it and they crave it. My stepsons, like one of my stepsons, he's really bright. I mean, he's 8, almost 19 now, and he's been working as an electrician's apprentice since he was 15.
Hmm.
Like that was where he thrived. He did not thrive in a school setting. But trying to teach them at home, my little ones, they asked to come home. They're like, Mom, we're bored with the math that we're doing in second grade. Can you have extra math for us at home? And they were like working on algebra at home when they got home from second grade.
Hmm.
And I was like, they are like, and we had started homeschooling our oldest first. He'd gotten in some trouble at school. So we're like, okay, we'll bring him home and let's just see how it goes. And my younger kids were like begging to get to do his work. And he was in the 8th grade. And so the second graders were coming home and doing 8th grade work, just out of fun, you know? But then I
Yes.
told my husband, I said, oh my gosh, I'm like exhausted because I'm teaching, him being in the eighth grade, I felt like he really needed a set curriculum. And we thought he was going back in 6 months. So I was making sure he was staying on track. And I told my husband, I said, I'm exhausted. I am literally teaching from 6 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night. Like, I can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
So we asked the twins if they wanted to come home and homeschool for 6 months and see how it worked. And they were like, yes, like they were so excited. Yeah. And I mean, like, they were doing like their curriculum, they were doing their brother's curriculum, like they just wanted to learn all day long, you know. And so then our kind of middle son, the one who I was telling you about that's almost 19 now, he was well, like, well, if everybody else is home, I want to be home, like the whole FOMO thing, like fear of missing out. And so he came home, but he was like, wait, you expect me to do work? And
Mm,
that was like where the hard part came in because like our oldest one wanted to go back to school. So he was doing all his work to make sure he didn't get held back. I had my little ones that were doing everybody's work. And then I had my one in the middle who didn't want to do any work. And I was trying to create something that worked for everybody. And we did this for almost 2 years.
mm.
And I was exhausted.
Yeah.
And now that our older ones are out of the house and I have the twins and then we have two younger ones, I'm not saying we unschool really any of them, but we've embraced that concept so much more.
Mm-hmm.
Like I kind of go, so what do you want to, the older ones, what do you want to be when you grow up? Well, I want to be a vet. Okay, if you want to be a vet, you need to understand that you need to have all your math and sciences locked in before you go to college. Okay, what do I need to do? Like, so she's very, and then everything else she chooses her own curriculum. So I let her guide herself.
Yes.
Whereas like,
I like to call it reverse engineering your educational journey, because to go where you're, I mean, yeah, to go where you want to go, you need to kind of, yeah, you need to know where you're going first, right? Because
Mhm.
a lot of the high
Yeah,
schoolers, I feel like they just get out of high school and they're a little bit aimless. It's just like,
yeah.
oh, let's just shoot the shot, let's just try this or that.
Mhm.
Whereas homeschoolers and unschoolers, they have a better of an idea already of where they want to go. And like you said,
Yeah.
okay, you want to be an engineer or a vet, whatever. Okay, what do I need to do to get into that program? Oh, okay, I need to these 2 courses, 3 courses, whatever. Okay, then I'm going to work on these courses, to get my credits or whatever I need. Okay,
Mhm.
so if I need those courses, how do I have to prepare myself? Right?
Yeah.
So it's step by step, working your way from way back. And then
Yeah.
you really
Well,
get
like,
to just focus on the things that you actually need to focus on. And all the
well, my
fluff
husband and
can
I,
just,
when we moved from Oregon to Idaho, he was like, let's try this unschooling concept. Like, I kind of like it. And I was like, okay, let's give it a shot. And that was when
yeah.
we first saw that one middle child, like he was not going to be self-motivated in any way, shape, or form. Like unschooling was his like, yes, it's my out.
Yeah.
And so we ended up kind of locking it back down. But then he came to us and said, I can't do school. Can I get a job?
Wow.
And we said, this is our opportunity to unschool him in the way he needs to be unschooled.
Yeah.
And he started working and he has worked every day since then.
Yeah.
And it probably saved our marriage.
Yeah. 100%.
Right.
And, honestly, unschooling, I tell this to people, unschooling was the glue that actually put our marriage back together, because we
Hmm.
were not on good terms prior to that. Like we were gonna split. Like we were separated for like a month, because we just couldn't come to an agreement with the whole COVID thing. And like, we both had like our own, not ideals, but he thought, this is the right thing to do. This is the safest route for
Hmm.
the kids. And I was like, okay, well, my life is crumbling and I have to put my entire career, my path on hold.
Mm.
It's like I'm being asked to sacrifice everything again as a mother. And as
And
a mother,
yeah,
you feel, I already stayed home for 5 years with my kids. more than that, and I felt like that was a sacrifice at the time,
Hmm.
and now it's like it's being asked of me again. What do you mean?
Right.
And now looking back, I really think, thank God I was home with my kids. Thank God, I did kind of pull through and, you know, jump off the diving board.
That's awesome. So I've kind of seen, like I said, I joke sometimes that we're traditional eclectic unschoolers because it just
Yep.
kind of depends on our day of the week and what we're doing and each child. But I follow a lot of unschooling groups and I see in some places they're like, oh yeah, it's a sliding scale. It's what works for your family. And I see some that are like really like, no, you don't do anything. Even strewing for your kids is manipulation and all
Mm,
this. And I'm like, gosh, I think strewing is the best, like most fun concept.
yes.
And so what are your kind of thoughts on like the sliding scale of unschooling?
Well, it's like a spectrum, right? We talk a lot about this in our community, and we have a very wide range of different people and different styles of homeschoolers. And we also have lots of parents that are still in the system or whose kids are still in the system for various reasons, right? Whether you're sharing custody with somebody or, you can't quite pull them. And, you can still have an unschooling mindset, even if your kids are in school.
Mm-hmm.
You can still do the work on yourself and after school hours on the weekends when you
Yeah.
have them, you can still be a voice for them, give them that critical thinking skills, eyes to see, uh and then there's those others like myself that doesn't use very much curriculum, and people are always like, wow, your kids go to bed whenever they want and they wake up whenever they want, and just but it's because of my personality. It's because of where I'm at,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are parents that are somewhere in the middle, right? And it's unschooling isn't about having the kids do whatever they want, and there's no rules and no boundaries, right? And it's about meeting everyone's needs. It's not about just, the kids' needs. It's also about my needs. What are my needs and what are my husband's needs?
Mm-hmm.
And how can we create an environment where we can all coexist and live happily together,
Yeah.
and meeting everybody's needs, and like you were saying, that some kids really need more of that meat on the bones. They're more like academically wired. That's my
Mm-hmm.
middle child, right? I can just keep pumping those worksheets out of the printer, and
Yeah.
she's just like, that's her motivation. She loves it. She'll pick up a book every day and wants to read to me, and I'm like, oh, you're
That's
so
my
easy. Like, I just like, I don't even have to ask you. You just do it.
I saw that my first grader was moving through he's actually doing kindergarten math. There's a whole unschooling story with that. But I saw he was pumping through it really fast, and I was like, I'm gonna go ahead and order him the first grade one because I think we'll be starting it sooner than later. He did 52 lessons of math over the weekend so that
Wow.
he could start
Yeah,
his new one. And I'm
that's
like, he's still
amazing.
a few lessons away, but I told him you have to finish because I don't want you to miss any of the foundational stuff.
Yeah.
But you're welcome to do it as fast as you can. The problem is he can't read yet. And so we
Hmm.
have to do it with him. I was
Yeah.
like, I'm exhausted, dude. Like 52 lessons of math is a lot for mom.
Yes. And it's interesting. Sometimes as an unschooling family, sometimes I don't quite know where my kids are at because, we don't do assessments. We don't,
Mhm.
and sometimes I'm just curious, like I'm not sure, like, are they where they need to be? Because when my middle one, the one that I was talking about, she would have been in grade two, no, grade one, I pulled her, and then we had the grade two. And I was like, okay, you've been home for a year and we haven't really, I haven't been like teaching you, the way it would normally look like. She kind of
Uh-huh.
like just browses through things and reads something on the screen. And I don't know. And so in December, no, September, it, she would be in grade three right now. And I thought, okay, let's just do this online program. It's called IXL. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Love IXL, yeah.
It just does like English, math, and
Part of our
just all the,
story. So
yeah, just basics, and I just out of curiosity wanted to get her to do the assessment, or it'll kind of like place
yeah.
you,
Mhm.
where you are in your skills. And she did it all, and she was right on track with grade 3 and grade 4. And I thought, well, that's weird because we've just had a whole year of doing nothing.
Mhm.
And that just was such an eye opener for me. We don't have to teach them and force them and, make them do things that, they don't need to do.
My 6-year-old, he came to me when he was like 2.5, clear as day. He's like, Mom, I think it's time you start teaching me now.
Yep,
Yes, sir. And so we
yep,
started, and we started like a preschool curriculum that was all like, what's your name and color in the squares. And when he was ready for him to start kindergarten, he started working on the math, and I started to do a reading. And so I let my kids pick all their own curriculum, like to some
yep,
extent.
yep,
And we go to a lot of homeschool conferences. So I took him around and I let him see all the different options that he had, and then he picked what he wanted to do. And so he started doing his English curriculum, and he goes, I don't want to do this right now. We'll talk about it later.
mm,
And we're
yep,
like, okay. So we set it aside, and it was like a year, but he was doing like a Saxon math, he was doing a Good and the Beautiful math, and he was doing IXL. And he had himself up to like a third grade level in IXL in kindergarten. So I was
yep,
like, he's doing his thing. I'm not worried about it. He was the kid that would get up before everybody in the morning and do IXL on his tablet before
yeah,
everybody even got up.
yep, yep,
I'm good with it.
yep,
So my husband was starting to get a little concerned. He's like, he's in the first grade. And the funny thing is, my husband's not the academic one. I am. And he's like, he's in the first grade. He can't really write. He doesn't know. He can't read anything. He's a smart kid, but I'm a little concerned. And I was like, let's just trust the process a little bit longer.
yep.
And the other day, he comes, I don't know, probably, 6 months ago now or something, but he comes blasting through the door and he's like, Mom, you told me you were going to teach me how to read, and I can't read my bug identification guide. He's like, we need to start right now. And he like went and got his curriculum out, crawled in my lap, and was like, teach me.
I love it. And they need that fire in their belly, right?
Uh-huh.
They
And
they
that was,
need it. And
I had
and
got
that's
him this
something
little
we
kit.
can't teach.
Yeah, I had got him
Yeah,
this little kit for his birthday or Easter or something that had like these little magnifying glasses and a bug identification guide.
yep.
And he couldn't read it. And he was like, well, this doesn't work for me.
And it's interesting because that's how it works for most homeschoolers and unschoolers,
Mhm.
right? It's just like all of a sudden the light bulb goes on. I can't keep up with my friends or my siblings. Like
Mhm.
I need this skill.
Yeah.
Right. So my youngest is 7, and she just recently had her light bulb go on as well because my middle one is just like blowing through chapter books, and she's just like, okay, this is not okay because they do have that little bit of a competition and rivalry going on sometimes. It's like, okay, Mom, you need to start teaching me. And I said, okay, bring me your books. Let's go. I'm ready.
Yeah.
But,
Absolutely. I love
rewind
it.
2 years ago when I was really like trying to push it, thinking, oh my God, like, in the school they're doing this, I should be doing this at home. And I would go to libraries every now and then to pick up some books, and I would ask what they want to read. My middle one would say, oh yeah, I want this, 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 I'm into this series of chapter books. I said, great. And then I go to my youngest one and she's like, oh, don't do this to me. And it's like, what do you mean? Like, I know what you're doing. Like she was trying to imply that I'm kind of like bribing her, right? Or
Oh,
like I'm working her. It's like, I know what you're doing. It's like, I don't want any books. I don't read.
oh, buddy.
It's like, okay, okay. Like, you got your boundaries. Yeah, okay, I respect that. No books for you today.
Well, and you know what? Like my 15-year-old, he's obsessed with agriculture related things. Like, he reads the history of farm mechanics and he wants to be a cat or a dairy farmer. Like that is his only interest. And he's been taking this debate class at co-op. It's just,
Mm,
1 day a week, and he takes the debate, and he really likes the teacher, so he participates, but I never have seen him actually work on his debates or write his debates. And I'm like, I don't know what he's doing, but I'm doing my own thing. Like I teach 2 classes at co-op. So I'm like, I don't have time to stay on top of what you're doing at co-op. They don't have homework or anything. It's just a
yeah.
1 time a week extra learning. And this week their debate was on the effects of methane production in the cattle industry.
Okay.
And oh my gosh, I have never seen this. He's read like every book on my shelf because, all my books are ag books,
Mm-hmm.
read every book on my shelf, wanting help from me, listening to old podcasts with people from the ag industry. Like, I mean, he went crazy and wrote probably the best debate I've ever seen him, or the best anything that he's ever written.
Amazing.
And
And
I'm
how
like,
old is
oh,
he?
he's 15.
Oh, I love that age.
Right. So really like having that click for him because he's high functioning autistic, so his writing has always struggled. And so for him to like find something that really like drove him like that was so fun to watch.
Mm. I have a similar story with my 14-year-old going on 15 this year. In the system, he was diagnosed and labeled as slow processing, slow learner, right? Just hated
Yeah.
to read. And and the problem wasn't that he wasn't writing, it was just he was taking too long, right? But he was very like he has beautiful handwriting and he's kind of very specific and meticulous with his work and he wants his time. I'm gonna I'm gonna do it, but I want to do it my way in my time frame.
Mhm.
And it wasn't respected at school,
Yeah.
right? And I would get comments like, "Oh, he's sleeping in the class. He didn't bring a book for the morning. He's sleeping during reading time." I'm like, well, I don't know what to do. That's your guys' job. He's in your care, right?
Right.
And then I thought, okay, well, I guess, you're coming home, whatever.
Uh-huh.
And sometimes, same thing. I wasn't bugging him for a long time, what you're doing, what are you learning? And then one day I come home from work and I kind of like peek into his room and he's got this big sketchbook that's like he's writing and he's been journaling apparently and just like writing and writing page after page like it's almost full. And he saw
Wow.
me come in and he's just kind of like flipped it together and put it in his drawer. I'm like, oh, like you don't have to hide that from me. And sometimes we underestimate what they can do and what they're capable
Yeah.
of, and then they just blow us out of the water, right? Like
Yeah.
he's journaling, he's writing, he's listening and watching documentaries, and then he signed up for this thing with what's his name? Andrew Tate. He's got this Hustlers University where it's all like inspirational, like men's coaching, and like they
Oh,
have like
nice.
exercises and how to start up a business and how to be an entrepreneur. And I'm like, okay, well, yes, I'll pay the $50 a month for that, yes.
Right?
And then me and my husband, we were talking about it, the other day, and we just realized he is the most disciplined member of our family, where he wakes up early, he goes to bed early, he exercises 3 times a day, he does his journaling and he does his research. And I really think, I ask myself, how did he get to that place? Because we did go through that stage of 6 months of, okay, do whatever you want. And he did, have nights where he stayed up till 4 and he gamed all day. And then, we get stuck in that idea of, oh, they're going to be these basement dwellers forever. They'll never get it together. And then, yeah, here we are, with teenagers doing amazing things.
Right? I love watching the changes that happen. So,
Mhm.
you're up in BC, Canada. Do you guys have regulations? Do you have to report to anyone on your schooling?
Luckily, I don't for whatever reason, because I thought, BC was the worst. BC and Ontario were the worst for COVID with restrictions or regulations. So I signed up with an online homeschooling board or school. It's called Self-Design. And we had the option of, going with a teacher that kind of like helps you and guides you with a curriculum. And they also had an option of, that's your responsibility. Do whatever you want. You just need to be registered as a homeschooler. So I thought, oh, okay, yeah, I'll just go there.
Okay.
And I was very surprised that, oh, like they actually let us do that here.
Wow.
But it's different in every province. And Alberta is a little bit different. Like you do
That's
have
like
like
every state here is different.
yeah, like you do have this one person that you report to, and I think you need to present your kind of like a rough yearly plan. And then I think they meet like maybe twice a year, and I don't think it's as scary as people think it is,
Hmm.
and it's mainly about meeting those core competencies, right? It's like, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, check this off, check this off, check this off. So I haven't had to do any of that yet. So I hope things stay that way, but you never
Right.
know with regulations and all these things.
Do you have any suggestions for families that do have those regulations, like how they should journal or something?
Um, yes, because I know I have a lot of friends that do have to do that. And first of all, know that you're the powerful one, right? You're the one with the ropes.
Hmm.
And really I feel like parents, we tend to be scared of the authority, right? It's like, oh no, like they're gonna tell us what to do, and they're gonna, if I don't do it their way, then we're in trouble.
But
And
you're
then
the authority of your children.
you're the authority of your children, number one. And number two, document everything that you do. And we were actually just talking about this in one of our calls recently, where I think it would have been Tasha, my mentor, uh, where she has to do that, and she's done that for 4 years. Whereas at first, the whole documenting and taking pictures and journaling, it came out of a place of fear. It's like, oh, I better do this right, and I better write this down. Whereas now, she's transitioned into a place of joy where it's like, yes, I get to record what they're doing, and then I get to look back years later of all these memories that we've made, and you're really doing this for yourself. You're doing this for the kids to see them unfold, in their learning journey and who they're becoming. So really do it out of joy rather than the place of fear. Like you're answering to somebody,
I
you
love
know.
that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can journal too. Like there's the people who really enjoy like paper to pen. There's the people who like more of a computer based. I know that there's a lot of
Hmm.
people that use what is it called? OneNote.
Yep.
Yeah. I love OneNote for like when I'm writing books to have all my like links and thoughts and everything in there, you know?
Yeah.
Like so I know people that use that when they're homeschooling like a bunch or unschooling a bunch of kids, they can have like a tab for each child
Yeah.
and then journal what they're doing and putting in pictures and
And with unschooling, the idea really is that you're doing what works for you. And
Mhm.
there are families that really thrive with curriculum, and they thrive with like keeping track and journaling, scrapbooking, whatever it is, right?
Right.
If that's your wheelhouse and you're good at it and you're confident, and this is just what makes you you,
Mhm.
yes, like do it. Absolutely.
I know there's a ton of homeschoolers that love or unschoolers that love my curriculum because it's,
Yeah.
based on homesteading. And so even if sometimes they use the workbook, sometimes they don't, but they just use that to guide their life. Like
Mm-hmm.
today we planted a garden. Let's go in and read about planting a garden, or let's read about planting a garden and then go practice what she told us to do, and kind of have
Mm-hmm.
that concept.
Yeah. And I was talking about this with another friend, and she was kind of like shooting some ideas with me because her wheelhouse is not curriculum, but kind of like helping people to design a plan for the year, kind of,
Yeah.
yeah, to kind of like go through the steps of what they need to do, to meet the requirements, right? To help them set up. And I kind of came up with this idea of, or the thought of, all we really need is a template. Like, I don't know if you work with Canva. Have you ever done stuff on Canva, right? Sometimes you have this,
I designed
this
my entire
idea,
book in Canvas.
right? So like you have an idea, okay, let's say you want to write a book,
Mhm.
or you need to write some kind of a plan, right? And then you just need a template to go off of, or like to start with, and,
Mhm.
and I do it a lot. I find this beautiful template thinking, oh yeah, like I love the way this looks, or whether it's curriculum or whatever your journey is. And then I end up changing all the colors, the fonts, I add my own flair to it, and then it looks nothing like the original template.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the same with creating curriculum or your educational journey, right? Sometimes you just need that base, like you said, you have a curriculum also,
Yeah.
and then people kind of like get to have an idea of what they want, and then they can customize it, and then they can
Right.
test it and see if it works. If it doesn't work, what can we change?
I love
And
that.
it's an
Speaking of
ever-changing
templates,
journey.
if anybody is looking for something, I do have planner pages and research journals on my website that you can download specifically for keeping track of what your kids are doing out on the farm and their
Awesome.
design. Yeah.
Beautiful.
But
Yes.
so if somebody was like, I want to start unschooling, what would you tell them to do? Like right off the bat? Like what book should they read? What should they not do? Like
Okay. First one is just chill out, relax.
I was too worked up.
That's the hardest thing. Uh, the two books that I started with, the first one was called Unschooling to University, and it's written by Judy Arnall, and she's kind of like the godmother of Canadian unschoolers.
Okay.
Uh,
I'm going to link this in the show notes because I always love being able to give people
yeah,
resources.
and her book is very much like practical advice, examples of her own kids and other unschoolers,
Hmm.
and just their stories and how they've made it from, being unschooled to having careers and university degrees. And it's just a fun read with full of like real life tips and things you can do, and also like the science and research to back it all up.
Oh, nice.
Um, yeah, I would start with that because I feel like that's also the hot topic of homeschoolers, so people who want to, is like, what about university? What about college? They'll never make it if they homeschool. And this is just like it'll flip the script and how
I
you
like
think
that.
about the journey, how to get there.
Well, that's awesome. And
Yeah.
then so if they were like, I'm going to start tomorrow and I'm going to start reading, I'm going to read the book, but I'm going to start with my kids tomorrow. What should they do?
Oh, yeah, man. Honestly, it's a ballsy one, right? And I feel like it's the hardest one, but just like drop the curriculum, see what happens.
Yeah, just do nothing.
Just do nothing, especially when you're coming right out of the school system.
Yeah, what did they
Just do
say? You
nothing.
deschool 1 month for every year you've been in school or
Yes,
something like that?
yes. If that, like, even give yourself a month, and see what happens. And my mentor Tasha, she always says, give yourself a year.
Hmm.
If you have a partner that's kind of like on the fence about it, and that's what she says is, give yourself a year. Like, what's the worst that can happen in a year? Let's just try it out.
Yeah.
No one's gonna die. No one's gonna.
Well, and I see it even with my kids that are schooled. Or, I mean, we do, like I said, we do a little bit of everything, but like, we'll take the summer off and we're going to pick huckleberries and the kids go, "Hey mom, will you grab the foraging book so that we can identify other plants while we're out there?"
Mm, yeah,
Yeah, sure.
yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they're like, oh my God, we get out in the woods. This doesn't have anything about mushrooms. Mom, we have to buy a book about mushrooms. Okay. You
Okay.
know?
In the cart we go. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you definitely, kids are wired to learn. I mean,
Yes.
even my one kid that I never thought would want to learn anything, he built me a trellis for my peas in my garden. And he was like, these turned out pretty nice. He's like, but I think I want to build them to sell them. And I want to
Yeah.
make sure I do it right. How do I know I did it right? And so I bought him a book on homestead building plans.
Hmm.
And he did that book like front to back, and he built me a potting stand, and he built a stand for our incubator. And I mean, he took it and went and did his own thing.
But it's interesting because they find their own little rabbit holes, right?
Hmm.
Because we as adults do it all the time.
Hmm.
But then we think that our kids can't do it or they won't do it because
Yeah.
they will.
Oh.
Like we've been through so many rabbit holes in the last 3, 4 years, right? It's like, okay, I need to learn everything I need to know. Let's say in your instance, agriculture, right? You have
Uh,
every book you've done, it's just like until you know that, okay, like I know enough for what I need to know right now. And then I have some space to look into other things like writing a book. Okay, what do I need for writing a book? And then you find all the resources and then you do it and you do it and you do it until you feel like, okay, I'm done with this for right now. Right?
yeah.
And kids
I
learn the
feel you.
same way.
Yeah. Well, as we're getting to the end of our time, my favorite question to ask everybody is, what does keep growing mean to you?
Oh, keep growing. That's a good one. For me, keep growing, it it means community. That's the word that always comes up to me. Keep growing, keep creating community and attracting people into your life that you can do it with. Because it's hard to do it alone. It's very depressing to do it alone. I've done it a lot alone, but to keep growing, really just attract your people, attract your tribe. It doesn't, growing doesn't have to be hard and painful. It can be fun, it can be creative, it can be whatever you want it to be. Just find your
I,
people.
I have to say, I love the beautiful answers that I get every time to that question.
Yeah.
So, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you?
Yeah, you can find me on my Instagram channel at radically.unschooling, or you can find me in Unschooling the Mind community. All the info is on my profile as well. So I'm the community manager at Unschooling the Mind community with Tasha Fishman. Yeah, I do coaching calls once a week. Yeah, depending on the need. And then Tasha does it weekly also. So we just kind of go back and forth, and we have quite a few people in this community. We kind of launched it in January, so we've got some fresh movement there. There's lots of interesting topics that we dive into, and we have I'm getting all tangled up here. Like we have a wide range of parents there, right? And
Uh-huh.
like you were saying before, sometimes you kind of get these clicky vibes. It's like, oh, we're unschoolers, right? We have parents that have kids in the system. We have parents that, are still doing curriculum. We have parents that are in private schools or doing Montessori or Waldorf, right? And it's all about creating community and unschooling ourselves first. You know,
Oh, that's
the
perfect.
kids are going to be okay. It's just us, right? That need that support. And yeah,
Well, we're the ones that have all the pressure put on us. So
yeah.
I love that. So thank you so much for coming on today, and look forward to chatting again.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining me today at the Homestead Education, and I hope that I have given you something to think about this week. To help others find me, please comment and leave a review on your favorite podcast player. You can also follow me on Facebook at the Homestead Education and Instagram at Homestead_education. Do you have questions that you would like answered or just want to say hi? Please email me at hello@thehomesteadeducation.com. Until next time, keep growing!